Street League just announced their season for this year. And I don't know how it's too many stops. So the way that they're doing this is there are 4 normal arena stops. There are these 3 like best trick contests. They're literally just best trick contests that they're throwing in the middle of the season. And then they're doing the Super Crown. So they're starting in February in Paris. And then they're doing one of those single trick Apex spots. Then San Diego. Then another one. And then this is, I think, where the Olympics come in. There are Olympic qualifying events like here. Like I'm telling you, like a week and a half later, there's an Olympic qualifying event here. And then in here, like between these two, there's another one. And then in here, we have the Olympics. So that is 3 added to this. That's 11 stops. And then you've got Australia, Tokyo, and then the Super Crown. There's an X Games in here too, because X Games just announced that they are coming back to the same place that they were in, and the girls too. Yeah, okay. So that's June 28th to 30th for X Games. It's so much, dude. Yeah, so then in that time, they're going to have, in between here, in between stop 4 and 5, these 2 Apex events, there's going to be an X Games and an Olympics. And so I actually had quite a few predictions for this season for Street League. The first one is this might be the first Street League season that Nyjah does not go to every single stop. And not because he's injured. Because he's missed out on stops in the past before, but that's because he's been injured. I have a feeling if he does really well at like these first couple stops, he might just sit out a whole lot of rest of it until the Super Crown, because he got 7th at the last Olympics. And like, that's when you're somebody like Nyjah, that probably messes with you. And so like, if Nyjah's not injured, but he's just not gonna be there, who cares? Like when it comes to Street League fans, and I feel like this isn't just Nyjah that's gonna do it, but it's gonna be unique because Nyjah has gone to literally every event that he's been physically able to. He's only missed them when he's gotten hurt. So there are going to be a lot of these where a lot of the people who are gunning for Olympic spots because they want to win the Olympics, they're probably not going to show up to a lot of these if they win one of them. And also, the last stop of the last Street League, it didn't matter what you did the whole rest of the season. There was a regular prelim for the final at the last Super Crown. So you could literally not show up, and that was literally what happened. Giovanni Viana did not show up to any of the previous stops in the season. He wasn't invited. And then he comes to the Super Crown and he wins it, which I think is really sick. I love Gio as a skater, but I just find it really funny that he was able to win the entire season despite the Chad move for real, but despite the fact that like from 2011 to I think it was like 2018, basically 2017, you only made it to the Super Crown if you were top 8 throughout the entire season. Like if you won a stop, or you got second and third at a couple of stops, or you made a couple of finals and you did decent, you made it into the Super Crown, and that was just the top 8 of the whole season. Now with this new, if they're doing it the same way with the knockout rounds and they do the Super Crown the same exact way, I'm just gonna not like if I was a person skating these events, I would just literally not show up to any of them and show up to the Super Crown. Why do I have a reason to show up to any of the other ones when there isn't even anybody who has like tour points? The only person who's pre-qualified into the final is the person who won the last one. But that was the same way for all the other stops. So who cares? You know, like also it's just a fact that I really think that I cover Street League and I talk about Street League, and I've been making my video essays on Street League, which I am working on the next one. I am working on the script for it very soon. I just decided that maybe it was a good idea to take notes for everything because now I'm moving into the 2012 season, and that's the first season with runs. And so I've been taking notes on everything, all these other formats that have runs in them, because I've been thinking that that's a pretty good idea to call back to that. Plus, there's a lot of people who join in the 2012 season that go into doing a lot better in future seasons. And so it's good to have like a directory of how everyone who's ever been in Street League has done. I've found that to be important. So I'm almost done with that. And then I'm going to start working on the next video for Street League. But I talk about Street League because when I was a kid, it was kind of cool because it was like street skaters who were pretty like popular and did skate a lot of contests, but they were almost all of them were known for having a lot of street footage, really kind of with the exception of Chaz Ortiz. And since then, through all its different corporate sponsorships and buyouts and host switching and all these little things, it just very slowly started to become not what it used to be, to the point where it is now, where in comparison to like the first 4 or 5 seasons, it's pretty much like watching a car crash. Which leads into my second prediction for the season, which is I think this is the last one. I think that that's a pretty fair assessment to make right now. Considering the fact that, like, when a band releases a double album and you hear the way that, like, whenever the front man of the band or whatever members of the band get interviewed, it kind of sounds like it's the last time they're going to release anything. That's kind of what this feels like. And you just have this feeling of like, oh, they're just going for a last hurrah. So they're making it the biggest season that they've ever had because they're never going to do this again. Because I can tell you, Street League fans are not hurting for this much Street League. And also, the last Super Crown was mid-December, and we're starting this season at the end of February. That is not enough of a gap for even people who enjoy Street League to miss it. That's the thing that kind of made these contests cool, is it was once a year, or there was a season that went from like May to September, and then you had like half the year to wait for it to come back. And it was like, it made it feel a lot more unique. But like when it's going on the entire year, and it's not just this, there are like 4 or 5. I didn't even mention Tampa Pro, by the way. Tampa Pro is also happening in between the second and third stop of this season. So that's like 12 contests that if you're going to go to all of them. But this happened in 2021 as well. But I think that in 2021, contests like Tampa and X Games understood that they weren't going to have the Olympic skaters that they had throughout those first throughout the Olympics. And so they specifically did a lot more invitation of skaters that weren't in that top 20 for the Olympics. X Games in 2021 happened literally right before the Olympics, and none of the people who are in the top 20 were there. It was all the people who were right outside of it. And like even like some people who hadn't even been to X Games before, because they were just like, hey, you're like up and coming and you didn't make it. You want to skate X Games kind of thing? And that was kind of how Tampa Pro was too, because it was kind of just like, and then Street League's season was after. the Olympics. So they did, like, they all accommodated for it. But it's kind of weird because, like, Street League made this announcement that they have this season that's going literally throughout the entire year. And it's like, bro, there is an Olympics going on this year too. Don't act like you're the big shit. I'm sorry, but like, the Olympics are happening for a lot of the people who compete in it. For someone like me who does not watch like cable television, I don't really give a shit about the Olympics. I definitely won't be able to cover them because I'm not going to risk getting my channel deleted over live streaming something that I have to purchase, but I don't even feel like purchasing it to watch it live when it happens anyway. Because, like, I personally don't really care about it all that much. But to somebody who is skating in the events, the Olympics are a lot more prestigious, and they're something that a lot of these skaters are going to want to do more than Street League. So I feel like this is just a really bad announcement. There's also a part of me, this is my kind of final prediction for the season. There's a big part of me that feels like not all of these stops are going to happen. There's been a lot of times when Street League has announced something that feels like it's just outside of the realm of possibility, and then they go back on it. This happened in 2018. They were literally the only thing that was streaming on ETN. And then they had, after their first two stops, this big gap where they had to do their third stop in December and then January of 2019 because ETN went out of business and could no longer host them, and they were scrambling to get something figured out because they weren't going to be able to use the location that they were going to actually go to in time for the event because they didn't have anywhere to put the contest when it came to streaming it. And then in 2021, they planned to have their second stop in Jacksonville or in Miami. And they weren't able to secure that spot either. So they ended up going to an already existing skate park to put on that contest too. And 8 stops is a lot, man. It's a lot. And so it just seems crazy to that, like, this is all going to happen. I don't feel like it is. We'll see what happens, but there's a big part of me that already, because of what Street League has become, when they make an announcement like this, to bring it back to a previous point, quick look at Yuto. He won the gold at the previous Olympics. Now he only shows up to Japanese events. Well, he showed up only to the Japanese Street League. He showed up to X Games and won both gold medals that he was going for. I think Yuto really, even though Street League kind of made him what he was before going to the Olympics, I think Yuto just doesn't really think very highly of Street League. And I can't blame him, to be honest, because if I was competing in these events and then it turned into what it is now, like right as I was like starting to blow up as a skater, I'd be like, yeah, no, this is super weird. But yeah, already with Street League becoming what it is now, this isn't a gigantic announcement in comparison to like if they would have done a season like this like a few years ago. But I really just don't think that it's going to be what it's all hyped up to be. But I'm willing to be wrong about this. I'm willing to actually enjoy these events. What's up, COD? I'm willing to, when things are good, I'll say when things are good. Like the last season was dog shit, but like that Sydney stop was actually kind of interesting because it was crazy to see like somebody like Kairi Netsuke do really well that whole entire time. Felipe winning his first stop. Nyjah getting food poisoning and ending up not doing well in the final. Like, that was an interesting like whole string of events that happened. But it wasn't because of the event Street League was putting on. It was because of what, the skateboarding that was happening. So we'll see if there are events like that throughout this season. But for the most part, it kind of seems like a dud. I am, however, very excited for the X Games coming up because the last X Games were pretty rad. And if they can match that energy again, even kind of close this year, it's going to be good.